Yes. Oh, I think we're live actually, so we can start. Excellent. So, welcome everybody. And I'm here with Norbert and Sarah. So after yesterday's insightful panel, we wanted to do a more slightly intimate session and more behind the scenes look, if you will, really talking about data. And we've worked extensively at Deal Room with both Norbert and Sarah. So we can really dive into it today. This is our final session. Let's get started. I will start with Sarah. Maybe you can introduce yourself to the audience.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jeroen, for having me. I work for a venture firm called Atomico, and so for those of you that may not be familiar with it, we were founded by Niklas Zenström, the founder of Skype, 10 years ago, to try and solve some of the challenges that he had faced as a founder himself. So we have this really strong founder-first ethos in the firm, and a lot of people in the team are ex-operators. And we're fortunate to have a growth acceleration team that's dedicated to supporting founders on challenges that they may face. Think about things like hiring, sales, marketing, or communication. And we're now deploying our fifth fund of $820 million with a focus on both venture and venture growth. So what does that mean in practice? We typically get involved at Series A and beyond. And personally, I'm part of the investment team with a twist, as my focus is primarily around augmenting the rest of the team with data and insights throughout their activities. So be it sourcing, thematic research, due diligence, or even in some cases, portfolio work. I'm also the co-author of the State of European Tech report, which is a big piece of research that we released at the end of the year. So you may have seen it a few months back when it was started by Tom Wemeyer 6 years ago. And before joining Atomico 2 years ago, I spent 2 years working for a data scale-up called App Annie, and before that, spent 4 years in investment banking.
Okay. Norbert.
Hello. Sunny greetings from Berlin. The sun is shining outside. Hello to Sarah. Hello to Joram. Thanks for having me. My name is Norbert Hermann, and I work for the Senate Department for Economics, Energy and Public Enterprises in Berlin. Angelegenheiten der Start-up-Wirtschaft is the job title that I have. So this is really bureaucratic and administration. I work in the State Ministry of the City of Berlin. And my job is to understand what guys like Joram and all those startups and scale-ups in Berlin, what they are doing, what they are up to. Funny thing is, before I worked at University of Technology in Berlin, and 10 years ago, we had Niklas Zenström at University of Technology, and we were very proud for having him. And it was something like a peak in what we have been doing. We have been supporting startups and the idea of starting up for a lot of years, and for 4 years now at the university, at the Senate Department. And to be honest, my main job is to listen to guys like you and trying to find out what should be improved and where we can foster and where we as small state can do some things to make the growth and the employment rate grow due to understanding and helping startups.
Okay, fantastic. And you are on your daughter's iPad, and this on the background. Is that the blueprint for Berlin's startup strategy, or?
Yes, I think so. It's a big network, as you see, and a lot of animals around too.
Great. Well, that's exactly what I wanted. My first question to you is about complexity, actually, and ecosystems.
Okay.
But maybe not animal ecosystems, but startup ecosystems. They're complex. There's a lot of randomness going on, and Berlin is a perfect example of that. Like, it all started out of nowhere, maybe for perhaps reasons that weren't pre-planned. so given that, like, how do you see your role? How can you kind of have an impact? And you said already a bit about listening, but can you say more about how you see your role?
Yes, absolutely. As you said, Berlin is a little bit random. Maybe everything is a little bit random, but Berlin maybe a little bit more. That's fine for us. So we as state, we are not an ecosystem builder, not at all. The ecosystem developed itself, something like we had some cool guys creating strange things like, how was it called? Alando, which was a little bit like eBay. And we had something that was a little bit like Facebook. And it's 20 years ago. And these guys came to Berlin to just do their things. And it was a grassroots thing. The thing is, why did they choose Berlin? You have to ask them. So we were not the ones to put them here, but Berlin was somehow attractive for young people and still seems to be. And we are very happy about that. So we are not the ones to make this ecosystem roll, but we are the ones to listen and to try to do some things, small steps, big steps, to make it work better. Like one example is the Investment Bank Berlin. We have a venture arm here, and it's more than 20 years old, which means more than 20 years ago, somebody in Berlin already thought of startups. The word startups wasn't around. Thought of how can we keep capital, how can we get capital into this young, crazy minds and make something out of it. And we were lucky. Those alumni startups stayed and they grew and they became big and they received money and they stayed in Berlin. And now it's a kind of mature ecosystem due to the fundament that we have. This is one explanation.
Yeah. And Sarah, I mean, you also have been working a lot with La French Tech, with Tech Nation, Berlin. I know that all these organizations love the state of European tech, to know where they stand. Like, how do you see their role, and how do you think governments could be more involved, or what should they be doing? What can the data tell them?
Yeah, so I guess maybe on the first part of your question around, the role of organization like La French Tech, I think to echo a bit what Norbert also mentioned is, in many ways, their job is to make it attractive for people to come and want to build companies in those ecosystems. And, I think if I take La French Tech, which I'm a bit more familiar with, I mean, pushing things like the French tech visa was brilliant. But I think also going back to research, which is something that obviously we've been also quite interested in. I think having those organizations back big research pieces, like one great example of that is the recent report that La French Tech launched with Stifted, La French Revolution. I know firsthand research and data collections are not an easy task. And so I think it's great that these public institutions can support that process and also create a better alignment with the governments, and even to some extent, like a direct communication line. I mean, they managed to get us access to President Emmanuel Macron for our launch events. How powerful is that? And I find over and over again that data is just such an important tool to bridge knowledge gaps, and it is just vital to help tell the stories of what's happening in an objective ways. And with SOET, we've made this conscious decision to keep a bird eye view. And so I think those government-backed initiatives are super important because they can lead the conversation in their own ecosystem with a similar data-led approach. And it's just so important to raise the awareness, engagement, and just simply to inform founders of the possibilities that they can offer. And then, sorry, on the second part of your question around, why should governments get more involved with tech and what can the data tell them? Well, I think there's lots of different answers. I think one of the reasons is just the importance of tech for the economy, and therefore the importance of supporting startups. They're just like an unparalleled engine of growth, and I'm sure Norbert can talk more about this, but if you just look at employment growth at European startups, it just far outpaces the employment growth of the whole European economy. So I think it reached a peak of 10% in 2019. But even last year in October, when we did the report, it was still like at 7%. Now compare this to less than 1% growth expected in 2020 for the whole of Europe. It's pretty mind-blowing. And having said that, I think governments have been paying more attention, and they have been more active in supporting the startup ecosystem. And just like following simply what happened with the pandemic, they have been very quick to respond and to set up funding relief programs and initiatives all over Europe. So, if anything, I would say the pandemic has increased the focus of governments on technology, because it's just such a key enabler for economies to adapt to the realities of virtual working and virtual living. And also, I think it's highlighted areas where we would benefit from greater investment in tech and infrastructure. So yeah, we're definitely like always on the hunt for ways to measure that collaboration between governments and startups. So this year we worked with Public. You can learn more about them on their website, public.io. And we also worked with Vanstar to try and quantify this in some respects. So if you take Vanstar data, for example, they are a global B2B healthcare marketplace. So they aggregate over 2 trillion of demand for healthcare products and services, which enables them to then give real insight to both buyer and suppliers and accelerate the tendering process. And so they have a lot of data on both sides of this marketplace. And one in particular that we found super interesting was that they could differentiate between SMEs and large enterprises. And so, governments, for example, they could leverage some of those insights, and then they could use them to put more effort into breaking down the barriers for startups that are looking to access public procurement processes. And I think even better, what would be great is if they could share actually and be more transparent about who these contracts are awarded to, because Vanstar is great, but they only do healthcare. It would be awesome to learn about every other aspect of public spend, like how much is government actually supporting startups. And I think it's just something we've tried to explore in many different ways, and I'm very passionate about it, as you can hear, because I think it's great to provide grants, but actually unlocking revenue potential for startups is even more effective and a more sustainable way to support these companies. And I'm sure it's happening. In the report, we highlighted some collaborations between the government and tech startups, and one of them is Accurix, our portfolio company that essentially is rolled in 95% of all NHS GP practices in the UK and enabled video consultation throughout the crisis. So yeah, sorry for the super long-winded answer, but there was a lot to unpack, I think, here.
Yeah, definitely. And Norbert, anything you want to add to that? Or?
I think it's very interesting what Sarah was saying. It's not only about giving money to startups or providing infrastructure, or we have so to say 5 pillars: capital, talent, infrastructure, local connectedness, and global connectedness. What Sarah also is mentioning is like connecting, collaborating, and using the technology startups are having for the state to run better. And this is really a very, very important and very, in Germany you say ein dickes Brett, it's hard to handle that. And we are very slowly working on that, very slowly, and we have been doing some things. It's cool that you're in touch with Public.io. I think they are the right ones from the private side to foster that. It was the day before yesterday that we had with Joram and with Dealroom that we had a GovTech landscape where we tried to make the startups aware. Here you are a network and you can provide something to the state, and we want to make it aware to the state too, that this is the startups you can use. And we had very good feedback. So we are doing small steps to also establish a procurement cooperation between state and startups, but it's a long way to go.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting that, like, even in a few months of 2021, I've started to see a lot of startups that are trying to solve this and making it easier for startups to win contracts. And so there's definitely something here that's happening. And I think, GovTech might be a big topic for 2021. I think, as we've seen last year how important it is for government to adopt technologies and to be pro digitalization. So yeah, and I guess it's also one of the pillars of Europe. If you look at the European Commission, enabling a proper digital Europe is one of their main priorities as well.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, that would be amazing if we can make that happen in 2021, or at least make some good progress. Okay, so switching now from kind of the role of government to data itself, and of course still talking also a bit about the role of government. So starting, Sarah, with you, Atomico has been always very, very focused on data and research. I think now there is a lot of data and research being published, but I think it was almost would like to say it was kicked off by Tom Waymeyer 6 years ago. Why do you spend so much time on it? Why do you think it's important to do this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the way we think about it is that data is the ally of the underdog. I think we've been data driven from day one as a firm because we actually needed to. We knew that if we were going to try and convince the world to share our enthusiasm about European tech, and more importantly, to invest in our fund, we would have to show it with data. And I think Tom tells the story better than me, but this is really how the State of European Tech report was born in many ways, many years ago. And so, yeah, it's definitely been a journey. And I think for many, many years, Tom sounded like a broken record, and something that he said in 2019. And frankly, many called us the cheerleaders of European tech, and I think we were often met with skepticism from journalists, etc. I remember, you don't even have to go very far back, but in 2019, one FT article headline was that we had a lot of self-belief and boosterism in European tech, and that it failed to convince. And I mean, look at where we are now. I think every week I'm hearing of a new San Francisco or New York VC that's developing a presence in Europe. So, I think Europe has definitely proven that it's an amazing ecosystem that's now just at the start of its S curve. So, I think in many ways data was a way for us to really shed light on the opportunity that we had here in Europe. And I think that kind of leads also to a second part of the question, which is, our commitment to data and research has also grown beyond that. And it's not just about showing the strength of the ecosystem. I think it's also actually about identifying knowledge gaps and weaknesses, and so that we can lead the way and show where we should be improving. And diversity is an obvious one. It's one that we've been speaking about for the past 3 years, and where there's still a ton of work to do. And where data, I think, was a big wake-up call for many when we first published the report 3 years ago. I think the other aspect, is even though we continue to see a lot of capital that's flowing into Europe, there are still obvious funding gaps in some countries, or even at some stages of startups' capital journey. And so I think overall, data can really inform the practical steps that we should take to build a better ecosystem, and also what initiatives work and which don't. And maybe if I just give you one example, which is something that I actually looked at more in detail this year, because we added more questions in the survey for angels. And I was just blown by it. So we have this amazing angel program, which has been both an awesome, fun experience, but also a great experiment in many ways, and a great source of data on how much having diverse investors matter for investing in diverse founders. So for those that are maybe not familiar with the program, it was started by Sophia Benz 3 years ago. She was one of the early employees of Spotify, and she's a prolific angel investor. And the philosophy behind the program was really to unlock access to people that were community builders or ecosystem builders that wanted to invest but didn't necessarily have the funds and were not necessarily fortunate enough to be angel investors. So just to put some numbers on this, over 60% of angels in the first 2 cohorts were women, and 20% from an underrepresented background, underrepresented ethnicity. And so they've now, we've done this for 2 years. They've made 100 of investments, and 64% of those investments were in founders of underrepresented backgrounds. So what's now interesting is that I was able to benchmark this and benchmark our angels with the angels that took the survey for SOET. And no surprise there, they were overwhelmingly white and men. And so in the survey, I specifically asked a question around what's the diversity makeup of their portfolio, and what kind of founders do they back? And we were able to really highlight crazy differences. So only 20% had built a portfolio that we would consider diverse. And by that, I mean they had more than 50% of underrepresented founders in their portfolio. Now, compare that 20% with over 60% for the Atomico Angel program. So, just right there, you have kind of a proof point around how important it is to have a better diverse team, especially on the investment team, and if we want to be able to back diverse founders. So there's just so much value that we can still unlock from the ecosystem today.
Right. So data is the ally of the underdog.
Yes.
It's really interesting. And from lots of different angles, I guess, both the underdog can be an emerging ecosystem or like underrepresented groups within an ecosystem.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and you've been pushing us at Dealroom also to collect more data around this, which we're luckily now doing.
Yeah, you should also mention like the initiative that you're also trying to shed light on different kinds of diversity, because I think a lot of the conversation has been around gender diversity, because in many ways, it's probably easier to track, and I think we have to do a better job at looking beyond gender. And I think Dealroom has been a bit of a pioneer here in trying to collect more data from founders. So please do report so we can do more next year.
Yeah, we will. I guess Norbert, for you, this is also a really interesting subject, right? And I know that you, like yesterday's session about K-shaped recovery is also about kind of inclusion from like kind of small business owners, that they can also kind of benefit from new technologies. How do you look at this, Norbert? Kind of, and also I wanted to ask you, like, how do you define startups, and where does your kind of sphere of of involvement, your domain end? Like, what is a startup and what is Mittelstand, as you call it in Germany? And do you think those will converge? Can you say something a little bit?
Yes. On the small business owners, I think the technology that startups provide have proven that they can help small business owners. Not the focus, but there is a thing around everywhere which says buy local, and buying locally means not using the big ones, but using the small ones and supporting the small ones. And I think the technology provided by startups can help a lot here. So what is a startup? This is really interesting because honestly saying, we get a lot of press that wants to that ask us, how many startups do you have in Berlin? And I used to say I don't have an idea on that, but there are some estimations from Startup Genome or from Atomico or from Startup Blink or from whoever. And it was really a hustle to always answer these questions. And now we answer it as we have this startup map and we say 3,067, which is a number. But how to define this number, something like, is it older than 10 years or not? To be honest, I'm not sure whether we need to spend too much brain on defining what a startup is. We should use our brain on defining how can we help the economy to grow and to become more sustainable, to become more equal. What Sarah was saying about gender and so on is something that's really important. And we don't need exactly what is a startup. We need what are the numbers and how did you say data is the lie of the underdog? How can we show the role of the underdog and make politicians aware that these are not no underdogs anymore? And as you were saying about Mittelstand and things like that, the startups, when they start, they are an underdog, they are a small thing, but it's exactly as it used to be ever. So startups is only a new word. Some of those grow and grow and grow, and they become overdog. Is it the right English word? No, not at all. So they can become corporate or Mittelstand, as you see with the IPOs from Auto 1 that we just had, but there's other examples also from Amsterdam and other cities. So startup, grown up, Mittelstand, it's a kind of normal way that it goes, with some that don't make it, absolutely. And what we try to do is also show Mittelstand that it's good to work with startups. As Sarah said, it's good for startups to work with government. It's good for startups to work with Mittelstand and the other way around. And I think I'm not the one to tell the Mittelstand what they have to do, but we need to make them aware and show them what is around and what can be done in the future and what can be done now. So the digitization of the whole economy, but also the whole society can and is fostered by startups, absolutely, no matter how you define them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so at Deal Room, we also get asked all the time, like, how many startups are there in Berlin or in Amsterdam? And the definition of a startup that we've kind of settled on is the description by Paul Graham, which is a company designed to grow fast. So it's a very specific group of companies that have this, that try to design their company in a way that it can grow extremely fast. And a lot of them don't, but some do. But it's a pretty specific type of company, actually. And it's not a very precise definition, but it's better to have something vague but accurate than something very precise and inaccurate. We think.
And looking with the glasses of the state, I don't mind whether the company is to grow fast or not. And if it's not growing fast, we don't like them. This is absolutely not true. We have some companies, and we have a Berlin Startup Scholarship here with a lot of small companies. And at the very beginning, you don't know whether they are designed to grow fast. They are designed to try something and find out and pivot and try and look whether there is a customer or not and whether the product and market fit is around. And some of them might, after 1 year or 2 years, be recognized as a company that's designed to grow fast. And if it's designed to grow slow, then it's fine for us too, absolutely.
Yeah, I guess maybe, so one dimension is growing fast. Another dimension that's maybe interesting for you is this future-proof? So you want to kind of future-proof your economy. And how do you look at that, Sarah? So what is tech for you?
Yeah, I think that's like, obviously, I think we should maybe stop talking about tech as something that's separate from everything else, just because, I think if anything, 2020 has accelerated the shift towards making every company a software company. And so, if the European tech ecosystem is going to continue to grow, and if we're going to create like 100 billion plus outcomes, we need to bring in operators and investors from a range of backgrounds that aren't necessarily all considered tech. And I think it's just permeating across, all categories. And I think only if we achieve this diversity of thought and experience, we can really reach our true potential as Europeans.
Okay.
I think you're right. So we shouldn't focus on anything, something like that. Is it right, Sarah? But we should have the global thing in mind.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I've also heard from founders that, they also don't necessarily like to be called startups because they are building businesses, and there is a connotation sometimes with what a startup is. And the reality is, if you're building something that's meant to be, profitable, like after 1 year, and like you're building something that's going to be, that you're going to take time, maybe your time, going back to Norbert's point, to build something before you find that product market fits. I think that's fine as well. And so I definitely see our definition of what's an investable business evolving over time. And I think, we even from my perspective, because I track a lot of deals that are being done by VCs, to get a sense of like what people are interested in. And we're seeing a lot of these anomalies, and they're becoming more and more common, where, the very first round is going to be 100 million in a company. The reality is, it's not a startup. It's a business that's been like grown over multiple years and has just been bootstrapped, and now they're looking for funding to accelerate growth. So yeah, I think that all these definitions are meant to be to evolve, I think.
Yeah, great. So changing topic a little bit, my colleague Orla had a great question actually for you both. What data would be amazing for you to have? What would you really like to be able to track? And maybe I start with you, Norbert, on that.
Okay, so this is something like, what do I use the data for, and what would I love to use it for? So I use the data for showing the importance of the underdog startups, not underdogs anymore. So when I have a number, like when we talk about startups, it's about 78,000 employees in Berlin. This is more than when we talk about startups. It's an important thing. So I use these numbers to show the strength and the importance of a phenomenon. And so what would also be nice is like having a time series for that to show what's been going on in the last year. So for venture capital, we have the startup barometer, and we have your data, which shows what has been going on. So it's so useful that we now know, even due to Corona, we see that in Berlin, the volume, the money, the big amount declined a little bit, but the number of deals still was okay, or it was growing in the last year. So this data is very, very useful. So we can look at it from the macro level, like the startups. Other data could be interesting looking at it, as Sarah mentioned, from the more industry level or from the micro level, like what is the future industry that's been pushing in the last years or in the last months. And one data that I would love to have is something like real-time data, which is given by some companies from time to time. So the closer to real time, the better we can react. Like during the COVID crisis, the federal state was thinking about this 2 billion program for Germany. And it was absolutely good to have the data around and to say, yes, we need that. And we, as state of Berlin, we can push that a little bit into the federal government because we see this and this is happening. So the closer to real time, the better. But what's also of major importance is the reliability and the quality of the data, because after 1 year's time, you find out this data was bullshit, or this was a statistic that was not really wasn't fundamentally really statistical and something like that. So, and what we know is that it's a hard effort to make the reliability of the data really good. So we need reliable data in real time, and on the macro level, also on the industry level.
Makes sense. And you, Sarah?
So for me, I guess there are definitely two aspects that I would love to get more data on. Well, the first one I've already touched on a little bit, which is on diversity and enabling us to better monitor and track progress when it comes to the diversity of those ecosystems in Europe. And I think that's something obviously that we've tried to make progress on, but again, I think there's definitely lots of different ways for us to measure this, and especially on the ethnicity side, I would love for us to be able to report more on this at a European level. There's been some great initiatives. So there was this awesome report by Extend Ventures looking at the UK markets, but it would be awesome to do this with a European lens. And then there's this other topic, which I feel like I've spent the past 2 years also talking with a lot of companies and a lot of people that are passionate about this, which is around purpose and measuring companies' net impact on society. And it's a great thing that we started doing with you guys in 2019, trying to put a number on the number of entrepreneurs that were looking to build companies which at the core the purpose and the mission was really strong, and how those align with the SDG goals. And again, I think at this point what we've done is a good start, but I would love for us to also quantify the impact of these companies on society. And I know a lot of people have been thinking about this and trying to measure it, and it's not been easy. But when you think about the talent that's sometimes sucked into these companies, it's just so crucial to make sure that it's not wasted on projects that don't really work for the greater good. So especially with the climate crisis, which is a big priority for us as well at Atomico, it would be amazing to have a better understanding of the footprint of some of these companies that we're looking to invest in.
So, Sarah, that's really fine to hear you saying that. That's absolutely mirroring what my colleagues and me are thinking about, especially this ethnicities and the purpose-driven thing. I say thing, sorry for that. So these are two things that we are really into, and try to work together with network partners to make it not a greenwashing landscape, but a landscape of purpose. So I would love to keep in touch with you on that whenever you have a solution, how to define and how to find out how to really show what's been going on in these two sectors, and how to really ethnicities. Can I really say this one is not from Germany? Is it something bad to say that? Is it politically correct to say that? We should ask him whether or her whether she wants to be in a landscape and in a list like that. So this is really not uncomplicated. We need to think about that, and I would love to have your input on that too.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's very difficult, and when we've tried to think about it, it's also such a moving target. It being a foreigner in one country might be completely different than another, and maybe some countries actually ethnicity that are underrepresented at the country level are overrepresented when it comes to founders. So it's really not something that's easy to quantify. But that's why I'm putting it in the bucket of it would be amazing if someone cracked this. And I think on the ESG side of things, we're also starting to see more startups that are looking to tackle this challenge, and trying to build tools that help us monitor the carbon footprint, and also just understanding the supply chain to better understand the ESG component of companies. So I'm also relatively hopeful that this is something we'll be able to solve in the next 1 to 2 years. So if anyone is doing something on this, please reach out. I would love to speak to you.
Yeah, same here, by the way, and we'd love to speak to you as well. Okay, so real-time and accurate data. So you're able to respond quickly to also external shocks. Secondly, diversity data, and third, some quantifiable way to measuring the impact that startups have. I think the first one is definitely doable. The number 2 and 3 are difficult, but we are also working on it. And I guess it's like the red line through everything of this is that we're working with data that's kind of hard to grab hold of, and it's like we have to get comfortable with vague definitions sometimes in order to be able to find the answers. Okay.
Yeah, and I think also we have to be mindful of some of the biases that we might also get from collecting some of that data. So and making it available as well. So I can already see how by measuring like more precisely different aspects of a founder profile, if we look at if we backtest that data and look for like specific attributes of what was like a successful founders in the past, we might actually create a lot of biases towards a very specific type of founders and reinforce some of those systematic exclusion of people from underrepresented backgrounds. So I think we also then have to be very conscious of how we use that data to inform our investment decision, or at least how we think about looking for new founders. So it can be definitely a double-edged sword, I would say.
Yeah. Norbert, I have a question for you. So we've spent a lot of time with you measuring startup jobs, so the number of jobs at startups. And actually, Sarah was also mentioning this number is around 7-10% growth a year. So that's really exciting. I was curious, how do these figures kind of resonate in political circles where you is this what politicians are interested in hearing?
Yes. Yes. So as soon as you have a number, it's out. So I think after we published this number, it was even the Bundesverband Deutsche Startups, German startups, they started using that. So it's a number that you can throw in and you can say, pay attention to that, because it's not just something, it's not an underdog, it's something big. So it's absolutely good to have something like that. We need to have that in an accurate way, that after 1 year you still need to say, yes, this number was right. We should have it in a timeline. What we are time series, what we are just trying to do right now is putting that number, and next year, thanks to your help. So for example, we had a first thing in 2012. We stated that we have 6,700 employees in startups, 2012. 2015, we had 13,200 employees. And last year we said we have 78,000. So even if these numbers are not comparable at all from the statistical point of view, but if they are out, they are compared and they are put together, what you see at least, it's a growing number, highly growing number, and that makes it easier for me, as my job is to advocate the tech and the startup ecosystem, makes it easier for me to have arguments that it's not just some numbers, it's really important. So I think we want that data, we want that because, and on the job side, Berlin, it was 12 years ago, Berlin had an unemployment rate for about 19%. So this makes it clear for people from the outside that it's important. So the number of jobs are of major importance. Berlin is still bad compared to other German states, but it's less than 10%, and it has been less than 8% before COVID. Now it's about 10%. So the unemployment rate is one of the number one things. What we also should consider is, are these good jobs? Are these bad jobs? Is it, I'm not the one, I would love to better find out the quality of jobs and how about those jobs. Another aspect is, if we want more talent flocking in, and we want that, what does it make to the society, to the city? So I used to pay very little rent when I came to Berlin 25 years ago. This changed due to these bad startups. I would love to have an answer on that, why all this is happening, what is happening. There are concurrenting things in the city, and taking data and making transparent what is going on, what has been going on in the field of startups helps us a lot. I think so what I wanted to say, we are not only on the employment side looking at that, we also want to have more information on everything that has been going on to make the decisions work a little bit better, to make it better.
Yeah, for sure. I know that, for example, we are working with the city of Amsterdam on that, and they were looking at San Francisco and what happened with rents there, and they're like, okay, we don't want that. So how can we? How should we think about city planning to avoid people who don't work in tech getting pushed out as well? Okay, I have a question for Sarah from the audience, like Ivo Spiegel, I think from tech.eu. He's asking if you could say a little bit about the behind the scenes of the state of European tech, like how is it being made?
It's a crazy behind the scenes. Yeah, I mean, I think actually it's a great question. We basically start planning for it quite early on in the year. So, we are always looking for new data partners and sponsors. And so I think we start conversations with people as early as March and April. And over the first half of the year, we really try to plan, what are some of the data sets that we'll be able to use, and also just validate that with the different data partners, so that the game plan is kind of set before we enter the crazy period. The summer is really spent on building the survey, which is a big source of data for us as well, because it gives us more of that qualitative data aspect that's really important, and help tell the story of the numbers that we get from everyone. So we launched a survey in September, and we usually keep it open for a month. And then, because we're trying to get as much fresh data as possible, we basically have a cutoff date that's often on the 30th of September. So after that, we start to get data sets from all of our data partners. And that can be 10, 15 different data sets. And then from October to November, it's proper crunch time. We just spend a lot of time analyzing those data sets, starting to create a bit of a story as well around it. And then once we kind of lay it out, we start to shape the chapters and shape the overall narrative. So it's a really intense couple of months at the end. The last few weeks, I think we probably work from 8 a.m. until like 3 in the morning, weekends included, to get it across the line. But it's always like super fun and super exciting. And we have a very small, nimble team behind this. So it's and it wouldn't happen without them. So I'm lucky to have Eleanor and Arabella, who help with the communication and the event planning and the media outreach. And then we have basically 3 people doing the data crunching, which is Tom, myself, and Maxine. And then we have a lot of amazing partners that also get involved to help us really expand the reach there. So that it's definitely one of those where every year we're trying to find better way to optimize and plan around it, because it's getting bigger and bigger every year, and it's meant to be a side project. So yeah.
Okay, yeah. After Macron, who is the next mystery guest?
That's an awesome question. I would love some input from the crowd here. Who should we try to get next?
Okay. All right. So I think we're kind of wrapping up. Yeah, I see a really interesting question about GDPR and sensitive data and how to consider that. Very easy topic, no? But I don't know if Norbert, if you have any thoughts on this.
We have somebody looking at that and making sure that this is dealt with how it should be dealt. And I think Joram, you could be answering on that better, because you are collecting this data that we are using in Berlin. So we are absolutely aware that this is the sensitive data. Normally we only take official data that's been published someplace and data that's been given by the people by themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And on when you want to measure diversity, like, okay, so data is the ally of the underdog, and you see the kind of two camps. So some people are really excited about helping to contribute, having better data on diversity, and then you also have people who think it's really awkward to be gathering this kind of data, and especially actually from Germany, we noticed that there are more people from the second camp, let's say. Yeah, so it's also a cultural thing, and yeah, you just we of course respect the wishes of any individual on that, while still trying to come up with yeah, actionable insights.
Yeah, it's always a funny part of going through the survey for us, because obviously we understand it's very sensitive and like people really react very differently to it, but we always have questions around ethnicity in our survey, and you wouldn't imagine the number of messages that we read, because you have an other section of people that have very strong opinion and don't understand why you're asking them this question, and all like answering really random answers. So yeah, it is a tough one, but I think if we want to shed light on some of the inequities that we have in our system, we have to do this in a data-driven way. So
yeah, agreed. Okay, so I think we can wrap up the conversation. I think it was super interesting, and this was the final session of the event from today and yesterday. In 2 weeks, we're gonna present a report with new data, some of the insights that were learned from this event, combined with some new data. And if you want to be kept in the loop on it, go to europeanstartups.co. So that's the project behind this event, and I hope to see you next time. And I want to thank Sarah and Norbert for taking part of this. If you do you have something you wanna say, Norbert?
Yeah, sorry for that. We didn't come to the internationalization part, what we prepared, and what I would say as Berlin, we are in Berlin now, and we have been lucky in the last years because we know how to deal with partners outside from Berlin. So it's cool to have Sarah from London around, and what is also cool is I have to mention the Scale Cities network that we are in Berlin, which shows that we don't want to be a kind of island, but we know that startups, they choose the city that they are in, but they also choose the city to grow to. They still have their headquarters where they started, most of them, but it's cool to cooperate with other cities in the Scale Cities network, like with Amsterdam, but also other German cities, funnily. So what I want to say is it's cool to have an ecosystem that's been building in Europe, that has been building up in Europe, and that's growing. I think so. Maybe Sarah can say that. And we are not fighting against each other, but we are fighting with one another to make startups grow. That's what I needed to say.
Yeah. So you're not the one who will ride with a van through London saying, "Come to Berlin."
I would say come to Berlin, but stay in London as well.
Yeah. And so you've been also one of the people behind this new alliance, Scale Cities, where I think the goal is also to have more collaboration between European cities, right?
Exactly. It's just good to talk to other cities, to have the chance for a quick phone call, and to provide soft landing possibilities, to have a network that I can connect to and that I can connect my peers to. This is really very, very relevant and good.
Yeah.
I think instead of ending on a inspiring note like Norbert, I'm just going to go for a shameless plug. So yeah, if you're curious about what we've been doing on the State of European Tech Report, please go to the website. There's lots of data there for you guys to play with, and as always, we love feedback as well. So if you have any other ideas on, things that we should shed a light on, tell us, and we'll write the story together.
Yeah, and about the Angel program that you mentioned, because I saw some people were asking about this too. Where can they find more info about it?
Yeah, actually, so we have a dedicated section of the report on angels, so you can also find more there.
Great.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it was a delight. Thanks both, and see you soon.
Have a great day.
Have a great day. Bye.